What's up, y'all? Back again today with a very special video. This video is kind of on the spot. As you know, when I'm riding my bike, like I said, I'm just speaking my mind. It's not really a lesson or anything like that. I'm not really teaching anything, just giving my perspective. So I saw recently, or should I say today, earlier today, basketball superstar Lebron James has had his home vandalized. No big deal, right? But the very important part of this story about LeBron James' home being vandalized was that whoever vandalized his home wrote the word nigga or nigger. We don't know. They just say the N-word. Let's just say they wrote the N-word on LeBron James' gate. And when I heard this, a song came into my head. The first thought that came into my head was a quote by rapper Kanye West. If you remember the song All Falls Down by Kanye West, he said towards the end of one of his verses that even if you're in a Benz, you're still a nigga in a coupe. So to me, that quote perfectly summarizes what happened to LeBron James. Now I'm going to explain very quickly. Like I said, Kanye West said, as a black man in America, even if you're in a Benz, a Mercedes-Benz, even if you're still driving a Mercedes-Benz, even if you could afford a Mercedes-Benz, you are still a nigga in a coupe. You're just a nigga in a car. It doesn't matter what kind of car you have. It doesn't matter what sacrifices you made, what kind of education you have. And as a black man in America, you're still seen as a nigga in a car. And of course, that was some years ago that Kanye made that quote, but it still reigns very, very true today. And so LeBron James is the most recent victim of this quote-unquote hate crime. But it's not surprising. And if you look at LeBron James's remarks about it, he says he's not surprised either. And I don't think anybody should be surprised. You see, I made a video recently, or should I say a film recently, called Blackface 2.0, where I painted my face black, I painted big red lips on myself, and I went around the streets of Texas and basically confronted different people and talked to them about what they thought about my attire. And a lot of people supported me, some people didn't. Some people didn't understand why I did that. And some people thought I was just living in the past. But as we see today, there's still multi-millionaires. LeBron James, almost a billionaire, is still viewed as a nigga by a large number of people. Now, of course, very few people would actually call LeBron James a nigga to his face, because let's just be honest, he's about 6'8", I don't know, 300 pounds. I mean, that's a big dude. So just off the rip, I doubt many people would have the courage to call him a nigga to his face, pending the possible consequences. But as I said in my Blackface 2.0 video, it's not necessarily even about the people who call you nigga to your face. It's more so the fact that there's a large number of people who would never call you that to your face, but they're still calling you that behind your back, and they're still teaching their children how to call you that behind your back as well. Now, of course, I wasn't surprised by the fact that that happened to LeBron James, but I was taken aback at the thought of, wow, this millionaire, this person who, maybe some of these people who are calling them nigger or nigga, maybe their children or their nephew or their niece or their cousin or brother goes to the Cleveland Cavaliers basketball game, or maybe their children has LeBron James on their wall as a poster. Meanwhile, the parent is calling them a nigga or a nigger. Now go figure, right? The irony of America, the hypocrisy of America is what I'm always flabbergasted at. And it's another telltale sign, or a perfect example of the racism that still is so deeply rooted in the culture of American society that we have to discuss it. This is why on my videos I always tag "let's discuss," because to be honest, we will never even move past racism if we don't honestly and truly have a discussion. And you don't have to discuss it with me, and I don't have to be the catalyst to start the discussion. But if we ever, as a society, expect to move forward past this black and white issue, this skin color issue in America in 2017 and moving forward, it is imperative that we have a real life discussion about racism presently and in the past. Because again, as I said in one of my videos, the further back you go into American history, the more blatant the instances of racism become. There was a time in history where the word nigger was just as common as saying, hey, I'm riding a bicycle. Like, this is a bicycle and I'm a nigger. That's how common it was at one point in time. And as time moved forward, it became a little bit more taboo to say. And there were certain ramifications for people who publicly said it, especially public officials and high-ranking authorities and public figures of the like are not allowed to say this in public because of the ramifications. But let's not act, as some people imply or assert, that this word and all of the implications that come along with it are not still prevalent in American society. Let's not act like this word, which has caused a deep amount of pain and suffering behind it, let's not act like this word magically doesn't exist anymore and nobody magically uses this word. Again, the reason why I'm making this video is because LeBron James is one of the most popular figures in America, one of the most common household names in sports, one of the highest paid athletes in the world, and he still, at his level of quote-unquote success, has to deal with racism. And he has to, like he said, he has to explain it to his children, his young children, what it means to be black in America. Now, I'm gonna play the video at the end of this video of what LeBron James had to say, but notice in his response that LeBron James said it's frightening, quote unquote, it's frightening to be a black person in America, particularly a black man in America. Now, there's a number of people, whenever you bring up racism, who will say, well, just get over it. It was so long ago. We had Barack Obama as a president. Slavery was so long ago. You've never been a slave. I've never owned slaves. Why don't you just get over it? Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. These are the common catchphrases almost that people in America use to defend or to seemingly silence the voice of racism. So, with that being said, of course I don't want to take too much of your time, but this is the reason why I make certain videos the way that I do, is because I was never disillusioned to believe that racism had went anywhere. I understand that at this time, there are still people, a large sector of Americans and people around the world who still feel just the same amount of animosity as their forefathers did during the Jim Crow days and the days of lynching, the days of slavery. So let's not act like it went anywhere. And again, let's discuss the possibility of really talking about it, of really talking about where it came from, when it started, all of the different aspects of racism, all of the different ways in which American society in particular has been brainwashed into following the doctrine of quote-unquote white supremacy. So with that being said, I don't want to take too much of your time, but please, let's discuss it and vibrate higher.